This is my 100 weight Alldays and Onions power hammer. I've had many requests to go over the hammer and do a bit of a walk around, and I'm happy to do it. This is a great old machine. So I'm going to talk about how I came across this hammer, the history of the hammer, and a bit of a walk around about the mechanical aspects of it and how it runs, and I'll show you it forging some hot steel. Okay, so the first thing you might notice about this hammer is it's fairly large, especially compared to me. This hammer is on a wood base made out of fir, and it's, I believe, about 11 inches tall or 10 inches tall or something like that. So this hammer was made by a company called Alldays and Onions, and from the date of the motor and basically what I can find, this machine was made in about 1935. So as you might notice from the shape, this looks a lot like a Pilkington hammer that you will recognize from Alex Steele's channel. And it is true. This hammer is the same patent as that, and I believe the patent's been around since about 1890, and it was sold to Alldays and Onions. And so this hammer was manufactured about 80 years ago, and this is the 100 weight model. So the ram weighs 100 stone weights, which is equal to about 112 pounds. But these machines are overbuilt, as many things were at the time. So the ram probably weighs 120 pounds on this machine. So as far as me coming across this hammer, I found this for sale on a Facebook group called Powerhammer Forging. It was in the States, it was in Minnesota. And I was looking for a large power hammer at the time. And so I took the opportunity to make a bit of a heavy investment. And I have this hammer, and it is mine, and it's about 2/3 paid off right now. And I absolutely love it. The shipping and getting it going was a very large undertaking that I had not anticipated. This is a 100 or 80-year-old machine. There's no customer service or help with anything, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so just as a little interesting bit about this hammer, as I said, this was made in about 1935. It was made in Birmingham, England. And it was put on a English Navy vessel, a British Navy vessel during World War II, and it was probably used on like a cargo ship or something, very lightly, of course. So this hammer did not get a whole bunch of use, and the fellow that I bought it from had bought it in Halifax, Nova Scotia about 20 years ago for scrap price. And after he got it, he bought a bigger one, so he never used it. So this hammer is, or at least in theory, should be in relatively new condition. The honing marks are still on the inside of the cylinders, which is awesome. So this is really, it isn't a wore-out machine, which is pretty cool. Our family is into kind of buying the historical machines. We have steam engines, and we have a threshing every year, and so this was a very good choice for me. It's a very nice hammer, hits very hard, and it has some features that you just can't buy anymore.
Okay, so you can see starting here at the back, this is a gear-driven hammer, which is a little different than most. Inside there's a crank, and that drives the compressor piston, which is, I believe, over 1 foot in diameter. There's the oiler. I use very lightweight oil in it. Best to use oil specifically for pneumatic tools. You can see the compressor piston and the valve assembly. The valve has 3 ports in it, each with a different set of check valves and 1 through port. In the middle is the neutral setting. This setting right now is the run setting, which keeps it up in the air and hits harder as you push down on the treadle. You can see if you move the notch all the way back, it engages a check valve, and it has a clamp setting. So there you can see the ram. So the ram again weighs supposed to be about 112 pounds, probably weighs a little bit more than that. Right there you can see the nut that tightens the ram guide. You can see the gear guard, and you can see that this machine has unusually large dies, especially for a hammer of this size, which I find really useful. You can see that the anvil is wedged into the casting, making this a 2-piece machine. Also, under the throat of this machine is where it exhausts and pulls in its air. You can see that right there.
Okay, so as far as electrical considerations, this is a 600 volt transformer. It's here in the shop that's used to supply power to a different shed in the farm. But regardless, this 600 volt line goes up to a giant switch that looks like it's right off the Bugs Bunny and Tweety show. That gets flipped up, which turns on the VFD here that I'm powering it with. So as far as a motor is concerned, this is the original motor that came with this hammer. This motor only turns at about 750 RPM, so it's very slow, and you can see it is huge. That's because this thing has tons of torque. Again, a feature you can't buy anymore. So this runs the hammer at about 160 RPM, so therefore the hammer's going to run at 160 beats per minute. And this particular motor is 400 volts, or at least that's what I'm running at, and it seems to like that. 400 volts at about 58 cycles. So really this is a 60 cycle motor. The slowing down just a little bit helps me with single blows, and I like that to be able to control it with the VFD. Originally I thought this was a 50 cycle motor, but upon further investigation it's actually a 60, and this is the original cast iron mounting plate that it's mounted on, so this machine is fully original. So this here is the VFD's control pad. You can see that there's a start, a stop, and then these controls will control the frequency and all the different parameters that are used to set up this hammer. So we'll go ahead and start it up.
So here I'll show you the different functions of the hammer. You can see when it's turned on, it sucks the ram out pretty quick in the hammer. There's a broken hammer handle made out of hickory. You can see as I pull down on the manual hand lever, you can see that it has a lot of control and just makes that piece of wood bounce. Really good control. And as I pull on it further, you can see that it strikes with a heck of a lot of force, especially for this ram weight. The speed that it gets from the velocity from the stroke is very good. You can see that the single hit ability is very good. Sucks that ram up good and is able to push it down very fast. Really handy for punching, doing straightening, and all different types of operations. You can see now it's going into the clamp position. It holds pretty firm. I'll put a block under there and try and pull it out with as much of my weight as I can. And you can see how strong it really holds. It works pretty darn good. Good for any light straightening and clamping.